Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFO DFS show for Monday, February the 22nd. I'm Brock Seguin. If you're new to the show, welcome. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, like it, so you get to view these every single day. Join us on this little DFS journey every single day. If you are new, you can add any comments throughout the show, and I will try to answer as many questions as you guys have throughout the show. And anything you do see today on the Google Sheets document can be available if you join DFO Premium. You can join DFO Premium for as little as $9.99 for a week. So yeah, do that. Lots of good stuff over there, and we'll kind of show you that as we go today. Happy Monday. Hopefully everybody had a good weekend. Hopefully you guys won some money over the weekend, and we're ready to win some more money tonight. So yeah, we got a pretty busy 8-game slate, which is not, really all that normal for a Monday, but, exciting nonetheless. So let's go through tonight's slate and talk about the goalies first, and then we'll get into all of the best plays and stacks of the night. So we start off with Buffalo in New York, or on Long Island, I should say, against the Islanders. Semyon Varlamov confirmed to start for the Isles. Not sure who starts for the Sabres. Probably Linus Ullmark, though. Chris Driedger continues to see the bulk of the starts for the Florida Panthers. He'll go head-to-head with Anton Khudobin in Florida. Frederik Andersen goes for the Maple Leafs. Jakob Markstrom for the Flames. James Reimer back in net, even though Nedeljkovic had a shutout in his most recent start. And then Andrei Vasilevsky, I'd be surprised if it's not Vasilevsky for the Lightning, but again, unconfirmed there. Jordan Binnington starts for the St. Louis Blues. Jonathan Quick expected to go for the LA Kings. No information out of Arizona or Anaheim in this game, but we'd expect to see Darcy Kemper most likely. Antti Raanta battling a bit of an injury right now, and then John Gibson most likely for the Ducks. But again, both of those are unconfirmed, so don't just go off my word. Make sure you check in during warm-ups so that you get the confirmed and you know who you're actually starting a goalie that's playing. And then Philip Grubauer for the Colorado Avalanche. We expect to see Marc-Andre Fleury for the Vegas Golden Knights because Robin Lehner are not on the road trip with them. So look for Marc-Andre Fleury tonight. And then in the final game of the night, we've got Martin Jones for the Sharks, Kaapo Kähkönen for the Wild, although Cam Talbot is going to be back in a backup role tonight. So we could see him in the near future. So let's start off with the first game of the night. We got the Sabres and the Islanders. Again, anything you see here can be available to you, much earlier in the day. Usually this is posted around 2 o'clock, sometimes 11 in the morning, and you can start building your lineup right away. Obviously, it changes throughout the day as you go, but you have to become a DFO Premium member to get this. So top stacks in this game based on the 5v5 data looks to be the top lines from both teams. Really no surprise there. The Islanders' top line really wasn't doing a whole lot until they put Jordan Eberle back up there. Eberle really boosts this line's numbers. The same thing he was doing when he was playing on Brock Nelson's line. Then the Islanders' second line looked much better with Eberle there, with Eberle back on the top line. Beauvillier, Nelson, Bailey back together. Islanders 1 pushes through as the top stack for the Islanders tonight. Buffalo 1. The top stack, obviously, for the Sabres, Olofsson, Eichel, and Reinhart. Reinhart and Olofsson, both pretty nice prices, $5,600 and $4,500. Although we did see the Sabres struggle mightily to get anything really going against the Islanders last week. It might be tough sledding again tonight, like it usually is for the Islanders. The depth lines for these two teams really don't grade out very well tonight. Islanders 2, the third best option, but they grade out below average, as you can see here by their minus 1.15 5v5 score. So, if we look at the matchups in terms of what both top lines are going to see, the Islanders' top line usually gets a good amount of the other team's depth. Fourth line and second line most likely most of the evening tonight, where the Eichel line is going to see the second and third lines mostly for the Islanders. So if we take a look up at their matchups there, obviously Islanders won really, really good numbers when Jordan Eberle's on that line. Terrific numbers, 32 scoring chances, 4 per 60, dominating the puck possession battle, and 15 high danger chances. Just really good numbers across the board for them. They're expected to see a lot of the Buffalo second and fourth line, which really isn't that good of a matchup. So on a busy slate, it doesn't look to be that great. Islanders, they grade out okay in terms of 5v5 score, but that's just because their offensive numbers are so good. Overall, the matchup does not look all that promising. If you're going to be targeting The Sabres, the best way to do that is to target their third line. And then if we take a look at the matchup, who's going to be playing against their third line the most, that would be the Islanders' third line. So that is a little bit interesting. If you're looking at playing the Islanders, it's really not a great matchup for their top line, although it is obviously their most prolific offensive line. It looks like the best way to target the Sabres tonight is through the Islanders' third line. So maybe just one-off John Gabriel Pajot, perhaps, with Leo Komarov on there. Obviously, it's not that exciting of a line to full stack. You can sprinkle in potentially some Oliver Wahlstrom if you want. He's the minimum price. But Pajot, he's been pretty hot lately. Maybe a Pajot one-off might be, kind of the best way to attack this game. From the Sabres perspective, their top line is their number one option, but really, the numbers haven't been all that terrific so far this year. Only 24 scoring chances, 4 per 60. Pretty much even in the possession battle. And then the Islanders really, their second and third line do give up a little bit of offense. 25 and 30 scoring chances against per 60. So it's obviously a matchup that the Sabres can win, but they just haven't looked all that strong. Their numbers really aren't that good either. So B-Star says fading Buffalo for life. And yeah, I'm kind of in agreement with you there. They've been really disappointing. Obviously, they had a pretty decent night the other night. But if we want to look quickly at the power play report, see if we can find any advantages there, the answer is going to be no on that one too, both with negative power play scores on tonight's slate. So it really doesn't look like all that intriguing of a game to target from a DFS perspective. If it's low scoring, that obviously means that both of the goalies could be in play. I don't like, Semyon Varlamov. I think, he's a fine play, but at 8,400, that's a little bit steep. For me, Ullmark, if it is going to be a low scoring game, is fine at 7,000, but really just not an intriguing game. And we saw that kind of a couple times last week when these two teams met up. Just really not a whole lot of offense either way. Beauvillier one-off for salary relief. Yeah, what is he? Is he still minimum price? 2,700. Yeah, I love Beauvillier as a player. He just really hasn't gotten anything going. The shot volume isn't really there right now, but he did play 18 and a half minutes last game. So yeah, for salary relief, I think Beauvillier is a decent one-off play. If we want to look at their matchups really quick, they're going to see kind of a mixture of all four lines, but majority of the top line and the second line of the Sabres. Obviously the top line is one of the most gettable lines for the Sabres, but I think Pajot is the best one off in this game for the Islanders, but Beauvillier is fine at 2,700, kind of a decent dart throw at that price tag. Florida and Dallas. So Dallas really shuffled their lines up coming back into play tonight. It is kind of a weird lineup. It's going to, makes it hard to stack them tonight. Faxa, Ben, Dellandrea really doesn't do a whole lot for me. Pavelski, Kiviranta, Kiro, same thing, kind of shitty. In terms of DFS, and then Hintz and Gurianov is in Robertson even. I think that's probably the most intriguing line to look at from the Dallas perspective, just in terms of overall offense. You've got Hintz and Gurianov that correlate nicely on the power play as well. So that's really the only line that correlates decently on the power play. Kind of a weird lineup. This lineup to me kind of screams like defense first. They're really going to try to shut the Panthers down tonight, and it's kind of a way for them to, on the road, be able to match up against Barkov or Huberdeau, regardless of which line's out there. That's kind of what this lineup looks like to me. Dickinson's performed well, kind of replacing Faxa on that fourth line, that checking line for them too. So, it stretches their lineup out, and I think it'll allow them to defend the Panthers a little bit more effectively. But overall, from an offensive perspective, it doesn't really, provide a lot from a DFS point of view. Obviously, so if we look at the DFS score to start here, Florida won, no surprise there, grades out as the top line to target. Really, really good score tonight. They've been super effective. If you've watched this show, before, we talk about Florida one constantly. If you're new to the show, they've just been outstanding throughout the entire start of this, first month and a week here of this NHL season. So Florida one, they're going to see the majority of that second line for the Dallas Stars, which is the Joe Pavelski line. And if we take a look up at stats here, obviously terrific offensive numbers from Panthers one, 3.25 expected goals for per 60, 34 scoring chances. They're just ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to go through every single number. That would just be boring. But overall, their numbers are just outrageously good. But that Pavelski line playing with Kiviranta has been really effective defensively. So it's not, again, another really, really good line that grades out well strictly based on their offensive numbers. But matchup isn't really all that good. Like I mentioned, I think that that's kind of what the Stars are going for tonight. They're really going to try to play solid defense and shut down the top six of the Panthers and try to keep this one low scoring. So yeah, it doesn't look like the greatest matchup for Florida one, but they've basically become matchup proof. Barkov is having an MVP like season so far, and their price is pretty good again. 4,600 for Verhaeghe, 3,800 for Duclair. So the price alone puts them in play for me. Definitely a line that I like to go to, and definitely a line that looks pretty appealing tonight. Dallas won, they grade out, slightly above average tonight, but I really just, that's strictly, based on their matchup. They're going up against the Huberdeau line primarily, and Huberdeau line really doesn't do anything offensively, and defensively they're fine, but Dallas 1 grades out slightly above average, really not a whole lot of interest there. I did mention Dallas 3 probably looks the most appealing with Hintz at 5,400, Kirionov at 5,100. If we take a look at their numbers, definitely solid, 29 scoring chances, 4 per 60, not overwhelmingly good. But the reason that they grade out negatively tonight is obviously the Panthers have just been really, really good defensively. So another one of those games that really doesn't look overly appealing. Looks like, Dallas could try to slow Florida down a little bit, and then that would keep these things relatively low scoring in this game. So really not, again, another game that's not all that appealing. Dellandrea seems like a nice punt tonight. Yeah, obviously, the one thing that you can, he looks like a nice punt because he's on the top line. But the one thing that's, pretty obvious when you look at Dallas here is they really spread out the minutes. Obviously you got right here, you got Toronto. Here, let me make this percent just so it's a little nicer. You got Toronto 1 and Toronto 2. They play massive amounts, 63% of Toronto's 5v5 minutes, where Dallas kind of spread things out a little bit more, right? So even though, he's listed as the number 1 line, all things considered, this could be this line could be third in the pecking order in terms of ice time tonight. So yeah, I think he looks fine. Obviously playing with Jamie Benn's okay. Dellandrea is, pretty good prospect coming in, but not like a guy who's overwhelmingly, superb offensively. So it's not like I'm over the moon, but at 2,500, yeah, that's fine. I could see it. But again, the way that they kind of dole out the ice time, they could really see, the third most minutes of that entire group tonight, and then it won't really matter. Does it matter? Does it matter that Dallas hasn't played since February 13th? Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think we've seen a lot of these teams kind of come back and really be kind of slow, and it's not really that surprising. Even going back to previous seasons when they were introduced the bye week, a lot of teams would come off that bye week and wouldn't be, nearly as effective as they were before. So I definitely think it's tough. And then a game with the Panthers, the way that they're playing right now, that's, it's not just the fact that they've been off, but also the matchup. It's just not overly, and then the way that the lineup's constructed, just all things kind of working against Dallas tonight. And I'm not really that interested. Plus, Rangers played really well. Okay, Toronto and Calgary. So, obviously, Toronto 1 grades out extremely well. Oh, sorry. Let me just talk about the power play for this other game. Florida does have one of the biggest power play advantages on the entire slate, too. So, playing that top line, obviously, Barkov's the only one that you really get on that top power play unit. I think that, their power play has been so good that it does put Huberdeau and Hornquist in play, but I've said, I don't really chase Huberdeau and Hornquist because they don't do anything offensively. You're basically banking on them getting anything done on the power play. So they're tough to play at their price tags. I think what's Hornquist at right now anyway? Hornquist 6,000. Huberdeau, I think, is a fine one-off. 5,300 is way too cheap. Is that even right? I feel like that's got to be a mistake. That's right. Okay, so Huberdeau is a good one-off at 5,300 because they do have a nice advantage in the power play. But overall, that line hasn't done a whole lot offensively at 585. So, but Huberdeau's price, I didn't even notice. That is extremely appealing. Okay, Toronto 1 obviously grades out at the top here, and no surprise there. I mean, Matthews is just on an absolute ridiculous pace. Marner as well. Matthews obviously does most of the goal scoring. It's gotten to a point where it's these last few games, if you faded Toronto 1, you don't cash, and it's it's troublesome, right? It's you don't want to keep plugging them, and the price really hasn't gone up all that much. 9,000, they're obviously super expensive, but the other night, if you didn't play them, you don't cash. So the one thing that you guys get an advantage of tuning into my show is that a lot of these people playing DFS are going to go to daily faceoff, and they're going to see that Travis Boyd's on the top line and want to play him. That's a total guess. And I can tell you that firsthand because I did it. And Sheldon Keefe said he doesn't know who he's going to put on that top line because Joe Thornton was kind of ruled out right before he was available to the media. And so right now I've plugged in Travis Boyd. And the reason I did that is because I think that it is going to be Travis Boyd, but also, given his price tag, you can easily late swap to Jimmy Vesey or Ilya Mikheyev because they're the same price if it ends up being either one of those two in warmups. So, like I said, I think it will be Boyd. He's showed out pretty well these last few weeks. But again, it's not for sure. It could be Kerfoot, like who knows, could be Nylander. Like I have no idea what they're going to do. He didn't know what they were going to do. So I just kind of have to guess. So be aware of that. If you are going to full stack Toronto 1 tonight, keep an eye out in warmups. But yeah, they've been just obviously ridiculous. So they're expected to basically just see a combination of Calgary's top 9. Calgary's top 9 is expected to get Sean Monahan back tonight. But that line, regardless, with Monahan back on the lineup, has not been very good defensively. The Lindholm and Backlund lines have been much better defensively and offensively. That Gaudreau line has not been very good when Sam Bennett is the third member of that line. So yeah, like Calgary 2 doesn't look very appealing at all, but Toronto 1 obviously incredibly intriguing tonight. And I mean, they're going to be overwhelmingly popular, which makes it interesting, like kind of an interesting fade spot. Cause like, I mean, what is Matthews even at in terms of shooting percentage right now? Like, it's ridiculous. Like, isn't he shooting 30%, 24%? That's insane. Like, he can't maintain this. It's just not. It's not feasible. So to me, this kind of has like trap game written all over it. To me, the way that Calgary's been struggling like crazy lately. Toronto's just been scorching hot. Like, could Toronto come in here and absolutely decimate them? 100%. The way Matthews is scoring, the way Marner is playing, I mean, they could absolutely decimate them. But it does have a weird trappy vibe to me. If you're building multiple lineups, you definitely can't fade Toronto 1 100%. But you never know. Like without, their numbers aren't nearly as good. I mean, obviously they're still really good. 33 scoring chances for, 14 high danger chances for per 60, but they're down from when Hyman and Thornton were on that line. So without Hyman and Thornton, their numbers are down a little bit. So I guess I'm just trying to make a case for, if you plan on fading them tonight, I think there's some merit behind it, but it's obviously, it's a very scary proposition right now with how hot they are. Toronto 2. Again, they're going to see a good mixture of the top 9 as well. They grade out with a very nice 5v5 score. They've received a very big boost in adding Alexander Kerfoot to the left wing of that line. Their numbers are terrific with Kerfoot, almost mirror that of what Matthews and Marner do without Hyman or Thornton. So you're getting very similar type of 5v5 production. Obviously, a slightly limited ice time, or lesser ice time, I should say, from Toronto 1. But overall, the numbers are pretty similar, and I think that, all these Canadian games have a chance to be ridiculously high scoring. If you're gonna fade Toronto 1, playing Toronto 2 instead definitely provides a lot of leverage on the field. And based on, on the numbers, and that's all I'm kind of talking about right now, they are pretty similar, at least, in terms of underlying. Obviously, the overall numbers are nowhere close. Matthews is a freak right now. But I think there is reason to play, Nylander, Kerfoot, and Tavares. Their price is, so much lower. They're $5,000 cheaper to full stack than Toronto 1. So I think there is decent, reason to play them tonight just to try to gain some leverage on the field. Like Matthews might be 55% owned in GPP. Like it's insane. Total trap 2-1 Leafs win. I think so. I really do. I think it's an interesting game. It looks trappy to me, and maybe I'm just trying to talk myself into fading them, and I don't know. I was a game early too. Like I said last week, I think the Red Wings were going to beat Florida, and they didn't. The next game they came out and beat Florida. So maybe Toronto absolutely crushes Calgary tonight, and then it's the next day where where the trap hits. But any Toronto defenseman, obviously I always talk about Justin Hall. Playing him with Toronto 1. Because he correlates so well with them at 5v5. You can even pivot down from him because Toronto 1 is so expensive. Jake Muzzin's out tonight, so that's Justin Hall's usual D partner. So you could go to Travis Dermott tonight, who's going to replace Muzzin. He's 2,500. He's the minimum, so he should see a lot more correlation with Toronto 1 tonight than he normally would. And then obviously going down from a couple $100 from whole is advantageous when you're paying up for Matthews and Marner. And then if you're playing Toronto too, Brody is the preferred option. He correlates really well with them at 5v5. And then sometimes on the power play, it remains to be seen what their power play units will look like tonight. I would imagine that they'll stack that top unit because they don't really have a whole lot of other options. But you never know. So if you're playing Toronto 2, it's definitely Brody. And then let's just talk about Calgary here a little bit. Obviously, if it's going to be a trap game, there's a potential for Calgary to get something going tonight. So yeah, this is what their lineup looks like. I guess I can pull it up. It's a little bit easier to see on the line combos pages. So like I mentioned, Sean Monahan, game time decision. Matthew Tkachuk, Lindholm, Mangiapane together on the top line. That's really the only line I have any interest in tonight. Their numbers are really, really good. They're expected to see about 40%, mostly the Tavares line, but a mixture of the first and third line as well. But their numbers are really solid. 33 scoring chances, 4 per 60. That matches that of the Matthews line without Hyman and Thornton. 13 high danger chances. So definitely a really good line at 5v5. The problem is, Toronto's been pretty good defensively, but they're going to see 40% of their ice time against the Tavares line, which looks like the most exploitable of the lines for the Maple Leafs. So best matchup, best line on Calgary. They really look like the only one worth stacking. And if you've tuned into the show before, you know that I am a big Mangiapane guy. So let's go to Carolina and Tampa Bay. So thanks for the information. You are good. Anderson is the play, maybe. I mean, if you think it's going to be 2-1 for the Leafs, then Anderson's definitely a good play. What's his price anyway? 8,300. Yeah, it's pricey, but definitely an intriguing play the way Calgary's been going. But okay, so Carolina shut the Lightning out the other night. Reimer gets the start tonight. Reimer has not been all that great. 896 save percentage on the season, but it hasn't mattered. Carolina's absolutely dominant. Reimer's 8-1, which is insane. I think in his 8 starts, he's 8-0, and then he lost in like a relief effort, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was when he replaced Mrazek. When Mrazek got hurt, he lost, and 8-0 in every game he started, which is nuts. But I think Tampa Bay probably bounces back tonight. But that being said, Carolina, their top 2 lines grade out the best in this game. Their second line, if you haven't been paying attention, has been absolutely amazing. They actually grade out better than the top line tonight. And they still are at a ridiculously good price, especially Niederreiter and Netchas. Netchas only 4,200, Niederreiter 4,900, Trocheck 6,200. So altogether 15,300 a full stack. Very decent price for a line that's playing as good as they are. So basically, this looks like a hard match situation. Excuse me. For the most part, it looks like it'll be the Aho line against the point line, the Trocheck line against the Tyler Johnson line, and then the Jordan Stahl line against the Barclay Goodrow line, which is a hilarious matchup. But so yeah, let's start with the Trocheck lines. They grade out best. Obviously, their numbers are almost identical. Really, they are identical to Carolina's top line, and they come up much cheaper, and they have a much better matchup. The best line to target from the Lightning perspective is their second line, giving up 2.97 expected goals against per 60, 30 scoring chances against, 14 high danger. Not a very good defensive line without Anthony Cirelli. So definitely looks like the play tonight is Carolina 2. But Carolina 1's, their matchup isn't terrible, and they're just as good. Obviously, we like that top line a lot better with Svechnikov up there, so I do have some interest in Carolina 1, but if you need the salary relief, definitely going down to Carolina 2 is the play tonight. From the flip side of things, Tampa Bay 1, they did look pretty good in that last game, but didn't get anything going. I think that this is a spot, with coming off of getting shut out, coming, with in a slate where the Maple Leafs are going to be wildly popular. I think that this is a decent opportunity to play Tampa Bay 1. I think that their ownership should be down a touch because of those 2 factors. So if you're fading Toronto 1 and you got some money to burn, I think that Tampa Bay 1 is definitely an intriguing option. 7,000, Stamkos 8,200. So it's not it's not cheap, that's for sure. But given their what I would expect to be relatively low ownership in comparison to some of these other lines, I think it is a pretty good spot here. If we look at that game from last, Saturday? If we look at that game here on Natural Stat Trick, sorry, the site is takes up a lot of juice. Just give me a second here. I'll get a sip of beer in. So if we look at that, they had a pretty good game, right? 61% Corsi for, 7 shots, 0.88 expected goals for, 7 scoring chances. So the chances were definitely there. If you just compare that to the team that shut them out, they were the best line in the entire game. Second best line would be the Netchas, Trocheck, Niederreiter line. So those look like the 2 most appealing lines to target. Tampa Bay one definitely, had their, did fine in that matchup last game. They just couldn't beat Nedeljkovic. So it definitely looks like a play here tonight at discounted ownership, which is always good when you're targeting Tampa Bay one. But Tampa Bay's other 2 lines do grade out above average. I just don't know if I'm going to go there with such a busy slate. I think that the Gourde Coleman mini stack is more in play right now because they are on the power play together. So it's not like super intriguing, but for, you're going to need to find some value somewhere on this slate, and Gourde and Coleman, you could do worse than them. Their shot volume is usually very stable. Gourde has been pretty quiet recently, but Coleman's always a guy that gets the puck on net. So I think you could do worse in a game that could end up being pretty high scoring. I prefer them over the second line. Let's talk about the Kings and the Blues. So I'm not going to go into this game too much because it doesn't look very appealing. 2 lines, the 2 top lines grade out slightly above average, but overall it hasn't been pretty. The Kings are actually pretty hot right now, but from a DFS perspective, it really isn't that intriguing. It's basically going to be top 6 against top 6 tonight in this game. But if as you see here, none of these lines really grade out all that well. With Kyrou on that top line, really hasn't done much. St. Louis 2 without Schwartz has been atrocious. Like 12 scoring chances, 4 per 60 for Schenn and Mike Hoffman. I mean, it's a disaster, and people keep playing Mike Hoffman, and it's actually been working. They've been putting up points, but you're basically expecting them to score on the power play as well. Like at 5v5, they're absolutely horrendous right now. But overall, they're still fine defensively. All 4 lines for the Blues. Got a pretty good goaltender in Bennington as well. And then the Kings don't really get a whole lot going at 5v5, right? I mean, their top line's been consistent. They've been pretty hot, but overall, their numbers aren't great. They play a very low event game. They do win that possession battle, but they don't give up a whole lot. But they don't produce a lot either at 20 scoring chances, 4 per 60. So really doesn't look like a game that's going to be all that high scoring. Doesn't look like a game that's all that intriguing from a 5v5 perspective. If we take a look at the power play, again, I kind of forgot to go to that last couple games, but Toronto, second highest power play advantage on tonight's slate. So definitely makes them even more intriguing. Not really a big advantage either way for Carolina, Tampa Bay. Look at these numbers from Dallas. Oh my God. They get the most power plays and take the most penalties on the season. That's crazy. But then, St. Louis really, really, the worst power play advantage on this slate, I guess disadvantage, I should say. The Kings below average as well. So just all things, all the way around, this game, does not look attractive at all. Arizona and Anaheim. So if you are unaware, Trevor Zegras was recalled. Adam Henrique was placed on waivers. So the Ducks lineup's going to look different tonight, and they're going to have Trevor Zegras expected to make his NHL debut. Obviously, one of the most highly touted prospects in the NHL right now. Definitely intriguing. He's going to step right into the top 6 with Sam Steele and Jakob Silfverberg. I did mention last week that I always list Ryan Getzlaf first, but this Lundestrom line continues to lead this team in ice time. I think they've kind of taken over as at least a top 6 line. Getzlaf's usually third in the pecking order now, so that looks more like a third line at this point, which means Zegras should get a good look. So as of right now, we do have Zegras plugged in on the second power play unit. This was the top power play unit last game. I would not be surprised if Zegras replaces David Backes and they shuffle things around in that top unit to get Zegras out there because he's just that talented. So Zegras is, minimum price. It's not going to last very long. He is super talented. So Zegras obviously one of the best value plays at the minimum price. But there's more than just playing Zegras at the minimum, right? Like it's even more than saying he's talented and that he's minimum price. He steps onto a pretty good line. The Steel, where are they here? The Steel line is averaging 29 scoring chances, 4 per 60, 11 high danger. They've been really, really solid. That's Steele and Silfverberg. So he's stepping into a really nice situation. They're absolutely dominating the possession battle. So he should have plenty of chances. He should have plenty of time in the offensive zone tonight. And I think that is a very interesting line to stack tonight because they're, with him being the minimum, they're so cheap. Zegras 2,500, Steele 3,200, Silverberg 4,000. I mean, like you can play those. You can play them with the Tampa Bay ones and the Toronto ones of the slate tonight. And I think they do have a lot of potential. Overall, it's not the greatest matchup. They are going to see the majority of the Arizona top six, which has been good. Like, don't get me wrong. The top line has been outrageously good, dominating the puck possession battle as well. So something's going to have to give in this matchup. One of these lines is going to end up, losing that battle, obviously. But it looks like a spot where Zegras can kind of step in and make an impact, in his first game. So I definitely have some interest there. To talk a little bit more about Anaheim, their top line now, in whichever way you want to put it, the Lindstrom line also looks pretty good tonight. Their numbers are really, really strong as well. 2.72 expected goals for, also dominating the possession battle, 28 scoring chances for, 14 high danger. I mean, almost identical numbers to the Steel line. So both those lines look really, really solid. The advantage for the top line of the Ducks is they're going to see a little bit more. They're going to see a little bit more of the third line than the Zegras line is going to, and that's the Phil Kessel line. So obviously they're not the greatest defensively. They don't get a whole lot going offensively either. So a little bit of an advantage there, and that's why Anaheim 1 does come out with the higher 5v5 score tonight, but they're a little bit more expensive. They don't have Trevor Zegras on it. But I think if anybody does flock to this Anaheim 2 or this Anaheim game, they're going to be playing Zegras because he's a much more appealing name. So if you want the lower owned of the two options, it would be their top line. Yeah, Zegras is listed as a center on DraftKings, yes, but he just I just listed as here because this is what like the lineup looks like. But he is a center, yes, 100%. And Raquel is overdue for some goals. Yeah, Raquel's been sniffing it. He's been all around it. That line's been really good. So I think that there is a chance that this is Anaheim gets it going tonight. Obviously, they have not been very appealing, but there should be, they're getting some fresh blood in that lineup tonight. They're kind of changing things up. They're not sticking with what's not working. They're going to try to get it going tonight. So I do have a little bit of interest in them tonight. I'm just trying to pull up. I'm pretty sure that every time that these two teams have played each other, though, it has not been high scoring. So yeah, Anaheim won 1-0 and lost 2-3, 3-2, I should say. So. I mean, it has a chance to definitely be low scoring. If we want to talk about Arizona, their line has been, this top line is the only one you would even consider targeting. They've been red hot. They're definitely in play tonight for me. They're going to see just a majority, basically just the top six for the Ducks. And those lines haven't been very great defensively. Like I said, they're winning the puck possession battle, but they are giving up their fair share of scoring chances. So Arizona 1. Definitely still in play. The problem with Arizona 1 is it's very difficult to play them with anybody of interest. They are expensive. They're $17,700 to full stack. If we put that into perspective, that is tied for the fourth most expensive line on the entire slate. So it's hard to play them with anybody of value. And then if they don't score and it is a low scoring game, you're screwed. So it's hard to kind of tie a lot of money up in them. They have been really good, no question about it, but they are expensive because they've been so good. So it's tough to really play them of anybody of value. And when you're spending $17,000, you're probably better off playing some of these more proven lines, I guess I could say, in better matchups as well. 34 minutes. So we are going a little long here today. Sorry about that. 8 games though, so I'm doing what I can. So Colorado and the Golden Knights, they're going to play each other every single night, I think. So the Avalanche are going to stick with, we did see Landeskog on that top line a little bit during the outdoor game, which was hilarious. I don't know. I don't have time to really talk about that, but that was a debacle, but still pretty cool. Garland has scored every other game for the last 10 at least, so he'll score tonight. Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if he does. The problem with them, it seems, is they score one goal and they kind of just max out there. Like they score every night, but they get one, right? Like they put up 10 points for Garland and 7.5 for Schmaltz and 5 for Keller. And then they score every night, but they kind of max out there, where if you're paying $20,000 for Matthews and Marner and they put up fucking 4 points every night, then it doesn't really count, right? It doesn't matter if Garland is scoring every game if he's only scoring one, I guess, if that makes sense. But anyways, back to Colorado. Look like Burakovsky back on this top line to start at least tonight. rest of this lineup is going to look the exact same as it did in the outdoor game. Just a ridiculously good line. This game, these two teams are definitely very familiar with each other. There hasn't been overly high scoring, but Colorado won. Still grades out really well. Nathan McKinnon, if Matthews and McDavid weren't doing what they're doing, he would still be in the MVP conversation. He's been ridiculously good, as he always is, and they look really good again tonight. So they're going to go another kind of similar hard match situation in this game. They're going to go up against the William Karlsson line for most of the evening. So obviously ridiculous numbers, dominating the possession battle. 31 scoring chances for. The numbers just aren't quite as good with Burakovsky, especially defensively. They're way worse defensively without Landeskog, so that's why we could see this change. That's why I wouldn't tie too much, into Burakovsky tonight, because it might not last, but half the game like last time. But the Karlsson line giving up a decent amount of chances, 24 scoring chances for. They're solid, no doubt about it. One of the another really dominant possession line, but it's hard to dominate the Avalanche. So I think McKinnon, again, like I said, I think this is another spot where if you're playing Tampa 1, you might get him a discounted ownership because Toronto 1 is so hot. I think the same can be said tonight about this McKinnon and Rantanen combo. So if you get them at a little bit discounted ownership, it definitely makes them more appealing. McKinnon has had some success against this Vegas team, goals in back-to-back games. Had 3 points in the outdoor game. So he's definitely, can win this matchup against Vegas. Assists in back-to-back games for Rantanen as well. And Rantanen's shot volume has been, very, very appealing all season long. So I do like them because, obviously the ownership is going to be massive on Toronto 1. So Colorado 1 at slightly discounted ownership should be very appealing. On the other side, Vegas 2 grades out slightly ahead of Vegas 1. They're just overall, they've taken over really, as the dominant line in Vegas. That Vegas line hasn't had quite the same numbers that they had last year. And Vegas 2 has really bounced back after what, many would consider a down year. So Vegas 2's numbers are some of the best in the entire NHL right now. 3.04 scoring or expected goals for per 60. One of the best rates on the entire slate tonight, 35 scoring chances for per 60. I believe that is the highest, and it is. So they're definitely in play. They're playing terrific hockey right now. Colorado, obviously a pretty good defensive team, but they are going to go basically head-to-head with the McKinnon line, and that looks like a matchup that could just be a very high event because, as I mentioned, Colorado 1, not the same defensive line with Burakovsky instead of Landeskog. So Vegas 2, definitely appealing, definitely my preferred option if I'm playing Vegas because they're just so much cheaper and they're better right now. They're just much better, and the price just never seems to come up. 4,800. Karlsson's actually going down. 4,800 for Marcia. So Riley Smith at 3,600. So not the best matchup, not the worst matchup, but the price is definitely appealing and definitely a line that I'm going to be targeting tonight in multiple lineup builds. And the final game of the night, the Sharks and the Wild. This looks like another pretty good game too. So the late slate should be buzzing. Minnesota 1 grades out the best. San Jose 1 right behind them. San Jose 2 also looks appealing. The rest of the lines all grade out below average. In terms of the matchup, we'll start with Minnesota 1. They're going to go primarily up against that Couture and that Hurdle line. Those Hurdle and Couture line, pretty good defensively thus far. They've been doing so much damage offensively that the other teams really haven't gotten anything going at the other end of the ice. But the Eriksson-Ek-Fiala duo has been outstanding. 16 high danger chances for. I believe that's the highest on the entire slate. 30 scoring chances for per 60. They've been really, really, really good. Kevin Fiala's on an absolute heater right now. So I absolutely love them tonight. Specifically, so I know you guys, I told you I don't play FanDuel. I only play DraftKings, but I did jump on to FanDuel yesterday just so I could try to provide a little bit more insight for our FanDuel players. But I am going to talk primarily about DraftKings. This is DraftKings prices on here, but specifically Minnesota 1 is good on FanDuel. I can't believe how cheap they are. I think it's Eriksson-Ek that's like absurdly priced. So I do like Minnesota 1 a lot on DraftKings, but I'd like them even more if you are playing FanDuel. The price is really good, but even on DraftKings, not terrible. Eriksson-Ek 5,200, Fiala 6,700. You can mini them. You don't really need to play Greenway. But you can for sure because he's, it allows you to save some salary. What is super weird about Minnesota tonight, though, is they aren't going with any concrete power play units, which is ridiculous. I've never even heard of it. But they're rolling lines and D pairs on the power play. So last game, it was these two that were used. I don't know if that was just luck of the draw. I would be stunned if they sent out Parise, Hartman, and Foligno on the power play. That would be weird. So I would imagine it'll be mostly the top two lines, and obviously you're going to want to get Fiala out there the most. So I guess by default, this is their top power play unit. But it's just a bizarre situation. And then, like, obviously, like, we have them listed with Dumba and Brodin, but if they're rolling D pairs too, does that mean that Spurgeon and Suter go out there with them? I have no idea. I've never heard of it. It's very weird. But you know, if you are playing Minnesota 1, I do like still pairing them with either Brodin or Dumba. They correlate very well at 5v5 regardless. So Brodin's slightly cheaper. I think he's 4,200. Dumba 4,600. Both very, modestly priced. So you can definitely play either one with them because, Minnesota 1's not overly expensive. So I do like Minnesota 1 a lot. On the other side, though, San Jose 1 and San Jose 2 both have been really, really good. It's going to be kind of much of the same for them. Just kind of see the Minnesota top 6. Not the greatest matchup for them either, but their offensive numbers have been so good. Kane, Couture, LeBanc have really heated up in the last week. But I still really like Hurdle and Meyer. I usually play Hurdle and Meyer instead just because they're so much cheaper, and Meyer is outstanding. He's one of my favorite players in the league. The shot volume is always, I shouldn't say always, is usually very consistent, and it has been lately. So I still prefer San Jose 2 just because of the price. They grade out almost identical. Their numbers are almost identical. So if you're playing like Toronto 1 or Tampa Bay 1 or one of these other high-priced lines, it's so much easier to fit San Jose 2 in the lineup with them as opposed to San Jose 1. So I still have a slight lean towards San Jose 2 until their price comes up at all. So that's pretty much it. I'll go to the power play report here just to kind of break things down a little bit further for these games. So Vegas grades out with a really, really, really good power play score, top of the night. And that's just because the Avalanche penalty kill is not very good. Vegas power play is pretty solid. So, they definitely grade out as the best. The problem is that the way that their power play units are constructed, it's very hard to kind of correlate them together. You do have Carlson on the one unit, and then you've got Smith and Marchessault on the other. So that kind of is unfortunate. But it obviously just kind of furthers the intrigue of playing, Vegas 2 tonight, regardless. And then the last game, really no advantage for either team on the power play. Below average power plays on this slate tonight. It's funny because both Anaheim and Arizona grade out as positive power play advantages tonight, even though they have the two of the worst power plays on the entire slate. Both penalty kills also suck. So maybe somebody breaks through there tonight. But I do have a lot of interest in Anaheim. I'm very interested to see. I never thought I'd even say that, but I'm very interested to see what Zegras can do. But let's talk a little bit about the goalies. So I mentioned I like Varlamov. I think he is just a little bit overpriced at 8,400, but he's still definitely one of the more likely goalies I would imagine to win tonight. The Islanders have been pretty hot lately. I think that Drieger and Hudobin are both decent options because they're kind of in the middle of the road in terms of price, and I do think this is going to be a relatively low scoring game just based on what Dallas is kind of lined up. But, I think there are probably better options around there. And I've mentioned on the show before, if you're playing GPP, if you're building multiple lineups and you are fading, one of the top stacks of the night, one of the more popular stacks, which tonight would obviously be Toronto 1. In lineups where you're fading them, don't be afraid to place Jakob Markstrom, right? I mean, because if, let's say I'm right, which I might not be, but if I am, and it ends up being a trap game and Matthews gets held off the score sheet and Calgary steals the game, the leverage you get on the field by playing Markstrom is massive. So if you're building multiple lineups, it's not the worst option. He's 7,100. You can stack some of these other really good lines that aren't Toronto 1 and play Markstrom in there. So I think it's an interesting option if you're kind of, multiple entries and you are fading Toronto in some of those entries. But obviously, it's a terrifying prospect. Like, it could be a 6-4 game still. I'm not a Houdini, but not Houdini. That's not what I meant to say. But regardless. Moving on. I don't like really either goaltender in this game. I think this has the chance to be, probably the highest scoring game on the slate outside of that Toronto Calgary game if it gets going. But I think Reimer, Vasilevsky are both kind of, rough plays tonight. Vasilevsky, obviously the best goalie in the world, should see plenty of shot volume tonight, which makes him, relatively interesting at 7,800. But it could be another really high scoring game. Binnington, I don't love just because he's 8,500. It doesn't. It's just too much money. And they're banged up, right? Like their lineup is not the same. And the Kings, while they haven't been getting anything going at 5v5, they haven't been playing too bad. So just they're so banged up in St. Louis. It's tough to pay a premium for Binnington tonight. I mean, look who they're without so many of their top players. So I do have interest in obviously I like the Ducks tonight. So I do have interest in John Gibson as like a deep 7,300. He's very near the bottom of the goaltending pool. So 7,300 for Gibson to me looks good. He's been really good against Arizona this year. These games have been pretty low scoring. So I do like John Gibson quite a bit. Still one of the best goalies in the world. And I think, I'm on the Ducks tonight. I don't know why. It's scary. I was on the Red Wings last week and it didn't work though. So who knows? And then, this game's, both goalies I think are in play because it hasn't been that high scoring of a series. I would probably lean towards Grubauer. He's been exceptional all season long, 936 save percentage. So at 7,700, I think Grubauer is intriguing. Should see plenty of shot volume in that game as well, just because Vegas has been a solid side. In the previous 3 games against Vegas, he's posted 12.6, 17.9, 17.9 DraftKings points. So Grubauer is a fine play at 7,700. And then this last game, I think, is going to be pretty high scoring, so I don't have a lot of interest in goalies there. So the goaltenders are, it's tough to find ones that I like tonight. So I'm probably going to kind of just throw some darts with the cheaper goalies and hope for the best. John Gibson, probably my preferred play at 7,300. Quickly, obviously, I'm running a little bit long tonight. So I'm just going to kind of quickly roll through the defensemen, at least the cheap ones. So I mentioned Matt Dumba at 4,600. I think that's a pretty good price if you're playing Minnesota. If you're playing Calgary, I do like Rasmus Anderson. He's back on the top power play unit. He's got 5 shots in back-to-back games. So he's intriguing. Back on the top pair, back on the top power play unit. Definitely brings, some good exposure to Calgary. I'm just going to go back to the top stacks over here just to give you guys a look at it while I roll through these defensemen. And then moving down, I do like Brodin if you're playing Minnesota. I do like Shattenkirk if you're playing in Anaheim. If you want to get really punty, Jacob Larson, whatever his name is in Anaheim is, minimum price, been blocking a bunch of shots, seeing a good amount of ice time, plays a lot with that steal line, so should correlate well with Anaheim too at minimum price. I do like him as a minimum price option. I mentioned Travis Dermott earlier in the show. I do like him. Scott Mayfield's always a guy that I like punting. He's hit the shot block bonus 3 games in a row. He's only 3,400. TJ Brody, I think, is definitely in play if you're going to be playing Toronto 2. If you're not, I do like Justin Hall and Travis Dermott with Toronto 1. Obviously, I don't love Buffalo tonight in terms of playing their forwards, but I do think Colin Miller's one of the best deep hunts tonight, 2,700. The usage alone is going to be massive. They lost Jake McCabe for the season, so Dahlin and Miller should play a ton. And Miller's been really, blocking a ton of shots because he's been having his own end a lot. So I think Miller's probably my favorite at 2,700. But there's obviously a lot on tonight's slate. There's an 8-game slate, so there's a lot of options out there. And just try to pair them up with the lines that you're playing. Obviously gives you the best correlation. Use natural stat trick to try to find guys that play together a lot at 5v5. Make sure you're looking at the home and road games. Letty at 3,700. Yep, I do like Letty. He's fine at that price. His prices come down. I don't like Letty when he's up in the 4,000s, but at 3,700, he's okay. And just say it. You like Mario Ferraro? Yeah, sure. Again, I don't love Ferraro when his price is up that high. 4,300, it's a little scary. And ever since his price has gone up, his production's gone down. So obviously, Mario Ferraro is much better under 4K on DraftKings than he is above. So not Ferraro tonight. He is still fine. I do still like him if you're playing San Jose. Obviously, I'd play him over Brent Burns just because of the price difference. So if you are playing San Jose, specifically Hurdle and Meyer, he correlates well with them. So yeah, I guess Ferraro is still fine, but the production's been down ever since his price has gone up. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll stick around for like 30 more seconds in case anybody has any following questions. Enjoy my beer here. But yeah, if you guys don't have any questions, that's all fine and dandy. Good luck tonight. Win some money. If you want to get access to any of that stuff and you're not a DFO Premium member, you can join by clicking Go Premium. I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Click Go Premium right here, and you can join DFO Premium. You get all the stuff inside of this Google Sheet. Much earlier in the day, allows you to build lineups. Way before whatever we got 6:08 p.m. right now. So you get it much earlier. You also get a lineup optimizer that helps you build lineups quickly, and then you get access to our premium Discord channel where we are just talking DFS all day long. Any late breaking news and warmups. All the latest. Any line combination that is not what I have on the website, I post to the Discord channel so you can alter your lineups at last minute as well. So a lot of perks to joining DFO Premium, and we are just getting started building new tools each and every day. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Will Ducks be worse on D with Zegras? I mean, not really. He's not going to affect that line negatively all that much. I don't think. Like, obviously, he's not going to help defensively, but overall, I don't think it's going to make too big of a difference. Not having Adam Henrique, I think, is going to negatively impact them, but it is what it is. Did you say you liked Brodin? Yeah, I do. Like, if I'm playing Minnesota, I think Brodin's interesting. I think he's even fine as a one-off. He's always a guy that blocks a good amount of shots. I'm not afraid to get involved in the offense. And if they're just rolling D pairs on the power play and he's playing with Dumba, I would imagine that he should see a decent amount of power play time as well. So more than usual, at least. Thanks, brother. Good luck tonight. Yeah, you too. Pretty sure Boyd on Toronto won. Just checking warmups. I can't say for sure. Warmups are in 20 minutes. So keep an eye on DFO Twitter. I'll mention it there. Who's on Toronto won? I would imagine it's Boyd, but I'm not 100% sure. Appreciate it, Brock. Everyone smash that like button. Yes, please do. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you haven't smashed the like button, please do that as well. But yeah, that's today's DFO DFS show. I'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday, for I think it's a smaller slate, 6 games or something like that tomorrow. So see you guys at 5:15 tomorrow.